Welcome back to Remembering the Fallen, here on Real America's Voice.
Welcome back to Remembering the Fallen. My next guest understands Remembering the Fallen all too well. Mark Geist, also known as Oz, is a member of the Annex security team that fought the Battle of Benghazi, Libya in 2012. He joined the Marines in 1982 and served in a newly formed Marine cadre program as an anti-terrorism instructor. He is credited with saving the lives of more than 25 Americans at our embassy in Benghazi, where he worked as a security contractor, and is also the co-author of the book 13 Hours, the inside account of what really happened in Benghazi. Oz, it's great to have you with me today, and first and foremost, thank you for all you've done.
Hey, Beau, thank you for having me on, and thanks for recognizing this wonderful day that's coming up.
Absolutely. It's so important that we remember it. And I know it's called Memorial Day, so we must memorialize those who came before us and who lost their lives. Oz, before we get into the specifics of some of what you experienced, I'm sure that Memorial Day probably has a certain personal significance to you because you have protected Americans in some very dangerous places and no doubt had to see fallen brothers and sisters. What does Memorial Day mean to you?
You know, I think in not only what I've experienced, but what my family has. I had 3 uncles that were during Vietnam in the military, and I had my grandfather, who was probably my hero. He was a tank commander in World War II. And, you know, he served in North Africa. He stayed all the way through to the occupation of Germany, had 5 Purple Hearts, a Silver Star, 2 Silver Stars, and 2 Bronze Stars. So, you know, Memorial Day's always been something that's very significant in our lives as a family, and as you said, me personally.
Yeah. Well, Oz, a lot of your work in the military has been in protecting people, dignitaries, officials, and even prime ministers. As we reflect upon those we have lost, you've been able to protect many who were saved. What do we need to know about what is at stake when it comes to preserving our American way of life?
You know, it's everything. You know, this is the anniversary of our military for 250 years, the Marine Corps birthday, the Army, Navy. You know, we've been around for that long, and we've fought for this country and the values that make this country what it is, that have really been emboldened into our Constitution by our forefathers. And we need to always turn back to that and look to that as our guiding principle of what this country should be and how we should be addressing the future.
Yeah, no, it's so important, I think, you, especially coming from a military family, that generation that's new understands those values you're talking about that are embedded in our Constitution: honor, service, duty, glory. I think those are all things that we have to remember or else we'll lose them. And I'm sure that many of our viewers have seen the movie 13 Hours, which tells the true story of what you faced in the attack on our embassy in Benghazi. That's a great example of what I mentioned when I say that we are always under attack in some form, militarily or even psychologically. What did you take away from your experience in those harrowing 13 hours?
You know, it's about brotherhood. It's about the guys and gals that you fight with on and that you protect to your left and right, and it's about doing what's right. You know, it doesn't matter what is maybe you're told or what they want to present to you, but you have to do what's right for the people that you're serving with at that point in time. And, you know, we're protecting American diplomats, American people that work for the CIA, you know, all kinds of different people that are working and doing the mission for America. And it is so important that we focus on that and make sure that we do what is necessary to bring them home.
Oz, you are credited with saving at least 25 lives that very day. But of course, our ambassador and 3 other souls perished in that attack. That is, I think, a microcosm of the attacks that we face. And still, we live in a relative time of peace as Americans. A soldier that enlists, like yourself, has to understand that he may lose his life. Is that the sacrifice that you were willing to make when you enlisted?
It was. You know, I understood that one from stories and from you know, being raised by veterans and understanding what that was. I can remember, you know, my uncle taking me to the VFW hall and encountering those people that had given so much, whether they had volunteered or whether, you know, that was a lot of them were in during Vietnam that were drafted. And, you know, how important it is to understand and pass on those traits to our youngsters, whether that be by standing and putting your hand over your heart for the American flag, saying the Pledge of Allegiance in our schools, bringing back those things that have built the young men and women of this country for so many years, to give them the patriotism and love for this country.
Yeah, as we look at those graves that we see there on the screen with the American flag draped over them, I'm sure that perhaps you visit graves of friends of yours that lost their lives protecting our country. Many military graves aren't very special looking aesthetically. I spent some time at the South Florida National Cemetery, and they're all kind of identical, but they're numerous. They're as far as the eye can see. And they don't necessarily have big obelisks or beautiful marble, but yet that headstone tells the story of somebody. Do you believe, Oz, that we do enough as a nation to honor those fallen?
I don't. We have a month for everything else. Why don't we have a month for our veterans and the families that support them? Because they're the ones that really deal with us when we come home. They're the ones that support us, and they're the ones that we depend on and fight for those rights for our spouses, our children, and they need that recognition and understanding just as much as we as veterans do.
I never thought about that, Oz, but you're so right. Having a month would be a lot better than one day. And we do it for other things. Why wouldn't you do it for the people that sacrificed their lives? Oz, when you see folks out celebrating Memorial Day by, cooking out, going to the lake, enjoying themselves, as they should, do you take some solace in the fact that Americans can do this so freely and peacefully because someone else was willing and often did lay down his or her life?
And that's exactly what it boils down to. We can do what we do in this country. We can be the greatest country in the world. Are we free of flaws? No, we all have our own flaws. We as a country have our flaws, but I've been to probably 40, 50 different countries in my life, and no matter what, this is home, and this is where freedom begins, and everybody wants to come to this country for that freedom. And they should have that right to come here as long as they do it in a way that is legal and through the right procedures.
Do you think, Oz, when you see some of the younger generations, you mentioned it earlier, whether it's protesting in favor of Hamas and Gaza and things of that sort, does it pain you to see that? Because I know we do have a right to speak in this country, of course, as we should. But some of these younger generations, I feel like, are taking it upon themselves to take up causes that are kind of anti-American. How does it make you feel?
I got to be careful what I say because, I support their right to their freedom of speech. I mean, that's what I swore to do when I put my hand in the air and took the oath to join the Marine Corps. And that I hold that dearly for anybody and everybody. But at the same time, if you want to protest, you can protest, but do it peacefully and understandably. But that doesn't mean I have to like it and agree with what you're saying. And it's not that I ain't going to hold you accountable for what you do and for what those that you're protesting for do as well.
Well, Oz, we know the what, which is Memorial Day. We know the why and the who, which is to honor the fallen and their sacrifice. But what about the how? How do we best honor these people in terms of education and a lasting legacy so that nothing and no one is ever forgotten?
I think it's something as simple as every town, every county has a cemetery. I started this when I was with my children when they were young. Is on Memorial Day, our thing is to go and put flags on the tombstones of the veterans that are buried in those towns that have that just nondescript, non-military maybe, and sometimes doesn't even mention it, but those in the town, those in your area know which ones are and are not. But that's a way to just start that conversation with our children as to what those sacrifices are and what those people who did so much for this to give us so much of what we have, and why they've done that. And it opens up that conversation with our children and gives them that solace and understanding of why we are the greatest country in the world.
I think that's a great idea, Oz. If every family could just take some time to go lay an individual flag at a headstone in one of these cemeteries, because there's so many of them, thousands upon thousands. And if you planted a flag at one of those headstones, you could look up that soldier and find out who they were, what they did, what their service was. And I think that's a story that should be told because there's so many of them and it's so vast that how could we know all of their stories? But if you planted it, like you said, at one, you might at least know for that one day what that one soldier did in terms of their commitment and their sacrifice. Well, Oz, it's been a pleasure speaking to you. And thank you, like I said, for all you've done, saving those 25 plus lives and what you continue to do today, especially in protecting children. Thank you so much, Oz.
Thank you, and God bless.
God bless. We'll be right back.
We'll be right back with more of this Memorial Day special right here on Real America's Voice.